I got a question, who among K-pop idols who are into martial arts is the best fighter? I don't know because I've never seen them fight. But also, if they are trained the right way, if they are decent human beings, and and if they have some sort of a higher rank in whatever martial arts that they're practicing, then they wouldn't get into a fight, because that's not what martial arts is for. I know that's gonna sound crazy, but it's martial arts is not for fighting. And I know this because I actually studied martial arts, taekwondo specifically, when I was younger. And I'm not saying that to brag. Number one, I'm one of the worst students ever in the history of worst students. Second, I don't have the natural skill for any kind of martial art. Actually, I'm not athletic by nature. Third, I did it for the wrong reasons. My friends were doing it, I wanted to spend time with them, so I started doing it. My appreciation for the art, for the sport, and for what I was actually doing didn't come until much later. So maybe 5 years after I quit, that's when I started maturing and we started realizing and understanding what martial arts is really for. And it's really not for fighting. I know that's gonna sound crazy, but many martial arts is actually useless when it comes to fights, primarily because many martial arts were not designed for fighting. So let me explain a bit. There are moves that you can use that can harm other people, but they are not there so that you can harm them. They are there so that you can defend yourself if you are pushed against the wall, and disarm them in the soonest possible time so that you can leave the situation unscathed. So martial arts like Krav Maga, for example, it was created for soldiers so that when they come into the battlefield and get into a hand-to-hand combat, they have the advantage to itself. But if you actually get into Krav Maga, you will see and realize that many of the supposed offensive moves that they have is designed so that they can disarm the opponent in the shortest possible time so that they can get away. There has never been a fight where you're just there trying to execute all those perfect kicks and perfect punches and stuff. It's not. But in an actual fight, you just want it over as soon as possible. The longer that you're there, the better chance of you dying or getting injured or whatever. So you don't want it to last long. The other thing is that many of the if you have to understand that when you're getting into it, you have to decipher what it is that you're getting into. Many of these martial arts become useless because they are overrated, not because the martial arts itself is overrated. I think no martial arts is necessarily better than the other. The best kind of martial arts, the best executed martial arts, but many of them become overrated because of marketing, because many of these gyms and these people that are running these dojos, which is the Japanese term for gyms, many of this that are running these businesses, they're there for they need to market, and so they usually market by hyping up what it is that they do. So in Bret Hitman Hart's words, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. So that's how they usually package what it is that they're selling. But in fact, it's not. It all depends on the execution. The other thing is that for you to determine whether somebody is a good fighter, or for somebody to become a good fighter, actually, it takes a lot of dedication. Many of these martial arts require moves that are regulated because they are created for sports. Well, they are for sports nowadays, not necessarily created for sports, but they are for sports not nowadays. And so they have certain rules that they need to follow for it to become qualified, for it to become a sport. For example, in Taekwondo, they wear gears. We have body armors and the headgear, and you have to hit certain spots for you to get a score. You can't hit somebody in the groin or the throat. That's a foul. You can either get your belt taken away or get a sanction or whatever. But in a street fight, if you can't get to the groin, if you can't get to the throat, you go for it. So two different things. But not to say that they can't be deadly. I watched a video of this guy. He's a karate master, and there's somebody, I think it was a pimp, and the pimp was charging at him. The pimp was probably high or something, and with one blow, I think it was the hit of an elbow, the karate master knocked down the pimp. So, but then of course you need to consider that you can see in the video that the karate master knew the guy was coming, so he probably was able to prepare. But still, it could be deadly. But for you to get to that point where you can use the moves that you've learned in the sport or the discipline or the art in a fighting situation, you need to train for it. I do remember, I think it was Sugar Ray Leonard, one of the greatest boxers of all time, said that there were a lot of times when he did not even remember the fights that he was into, but he kept on winning anyway. That's what training does to you. If you're dedicated and you train well and you get yourself into it, fighting will become second nature. And for you to use those moves in martial arts that you learn, for you to use those in fights, it has to be second nature to you. And the truth is that when you're there and trying to get all of these belts, it's regulated. There are rules that you need to follow. There are things you can't do, which could actually work against you when you get into a fight. Again, it still can be used if you know how to use it. Next is that many of these martial arts were created during a time when fighting was really, really different. Warriors and soldiers would line up in a row and then they would charge at each other, and they wouldn't get any guns and whatever, and so they go into a hand-to-hand combat. But nowadays, fighting is so different. You know, there's guns and baseball bats and whatever. I think the best one is if you're able to evolve the art and the sport so that it could accommodate for the needs of the current times, then that's one way of designing that art to become useful in a fight. Second is that it really depends on the kind of fight that you're into. One move can save your life in one situation, and then it can kill you in another situation. When you're in a bar fight, there's no rule. Again, when you're in the ring in a taekwondo or karate, there are things that you can't do. No hit, no punch on the throat or on the groin or certain parts of your body. But when you're in a bar fight, it's free for all. When you're in a battlefield, in a war zone or whatever, hand-to-hand combat could be useless because there are guns and cannons or whatever. So it really, really depends on the situation. So whenever you watch all of these idols demonstrating their skill in any kind of sport, it is not a proof of how good they are in fighting. It means that they were able to discipline themselves in such a way that allows them to get to that high of a level in whatever martial arts they're practicing. And then finally, if they really are, there's a code. When you get into a certain level of a practice, high enough for you to understand what it is that you're doing, you will learn that your body is a vessel. And this is one of the greatest things that one of the lessons taught when I was in Taekwondo, but I did not actually understand that until much, much later in life. But one of the greatest things, one of the lessons that he taught us is that your body is a vessel. And it is there for you to respect it and to take care of it, because it allows you to do things that you will never be able to do without it. And that could be work, that could be to take care of, your craft, your art, to take care of the people that you love, to take care of yourself. There's a lot more that your body is designed for. And fighting is one of the lowest things that you can ever get into. So you try not to fight or get into a fight, because that's one of it's a waste. It's not something useful for your body to get into. The other thing I do remember, during the very first day that I was in my martial arts class, Taekwondo class, one of the first things that our instructor told us is that the first most important thing you need to train for is to run as fast as you can, because when you're getting into a fight, the best thing to do is for you to run. And it was so funny, because in a conventional society, you're gonna say that you're a wuss, you're whatever, you're a coward for not getting into a fight. But the fact is that it's not worth it for your body. Again, your body is a vessel and you need to respect it, and getting into a fight is not worth it. So you need to learn how to read the situation. If you know that you're going to get into a compromising situation, just get out of it, because it's not worth it. And then again, even if you're forced to fight, the thing that you need to do is to try and end it as soon as you can, in any way that you can, whether it means getting out of that situation or disarming your opponent and then getting out of that situation. You don't want to get into a fight and then demonstrate all of your high kicks and your spinning kicks and your axe kicks. That's not the point. It's not something that you should do. So yeah, those are just things that you need to remember and watch out for when you're watching all of these idols that are demonstrating their skill in martial arts. Given that, the next part of this video, second part of this video, is actually the K-pop idols who are into martial arts and some of the most impressive moves that they have ever demonstrated. So, but now that we know what martial arts really entails, then we can better appreciate it for what it is.